Hello there, and welcome to Pompe Island Discs, a new podcast series from the Pompe Support Network, in which we'll be speaking with members of the UK Pompe community, from patients and carers to healthcare professionals, and all via a selection of some of their favourite music. I'm Luke Fraser. I live with Pompe myself, having been diagnosed back in my teens. I'm also a musician and podcaster, and so this is a project which holds a double interest for me. For this series, we thought that taking a little inspiration from a certain well-known and much-loved radio show could be a great way to draw out some Pompe stories that might inform and even inspire the wider community. Each episode features a guest interview and discussion. To listen to the music itself, please click on the accompanying playlist, which will be published on the Pompe Support Network website alongside each episode of the podcast as it's released. Today's episode features Wayne Belfitt, 46 years old, I believe, if you don't mind me disclosing that, Wayne, from Sheffield, and whose Pompe journey started back in the early 90s. Wayne, welcome to Pompe Island Discs, and thanks so much for agreeing to meet today.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Could we start perhaps with an outline of your life before diagnosis? Do you remember any signs of Pompe going much further back? And if so, could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I started in my teens where I was finding things a bit more of a struggle. I was getting tired quite a bit more than anything else. But I didn't really think anything or notice anything quite dramatic. It was actually my PE teacher. He'd noticed me sort of not engaging within physical education and that I wasn't keeping up with the rest of my peers at school and that my running was a bit funny, so to say. Then I do remember my dad enrolling me in a after-school athletics club. So looking back now, it's quite a bit comical to think, and which I didn't engage with that very long before coach of the athletics club pulled me and my dad to one side and said that maybe Wayne might be a bit more suitable for long distance running because he's not got much oomph.
Yeah, similar for me. Sprint was definitely not the thing.
I think by the time I'd got into ready, steady, go, bend, crouch, go up, tried to start running, people had finished. I also remember when I was at school, actually, this was a little bit later on, so I think these symptoms might have started maybe around 13, and I think the guys in the class thought it'd be funny to enter me into 1,500 metre sports day race, so we just sort of took on chin and did it.
Yeah.
I ended up getting lapped twice, and then I got teachers running around coming, come on, you can finish it, and a big bandstand of spectators or other students with Mexican wavers all running. It was a bit of a joke and an encouragement all at the same time.
And did you just find it increasingly difficult after that point to be doing those athletic activities?
Yeah, I think from then I just found myself disengaging and wagging PE lessons and not even bothering to not wanting to get involved at all, really, just avoiding it with every excuse I could.
I would hang out in the music block, and that was always my excuse. I would kind of bunk off PE and hope I didn't get noticed or anything like that. It was good for me to have something that wasn't sport, a different identity, and you could kind of gravitate to that. Maybe we could move on to your first music pick. And we're going with a real classic, surely one of the biggest songs and albums of the 70s, Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell. Could you tell me a little bit about your choice here?
Well, actually, this was around the time that this all started when I was 13 years old, is that my dad took me to my first ever concert in an arena, and it was to go and see Meatloaf. He was a bit of a fan, and I had been listening to some of his music with friends. I had him on cassette tape back in the day.
Would this have been the early 90s, like Bat Out of Hell 2 tour?
Yes, it was. But I'd also known quite a few songs from the original Bat Out of Hell album, which obviously, he always does his classics, and he did some from there. So quite a lot of my favourite songs come from that very first album. But then as I went to go to that concert, then Bat Out of Hell 2 also became quite significant to me in sort of my teenage years as well, because then I fell in love with Meatloaf.
I remember what an event it was. I would do everything for love, and how that topped the charts, and it felt like quite a massive event.
16 weeks at
right.
number one.
That's insane.
Well, in the 90s, I mean, you don't get that many charts as you do today. But yeah, I think it was Meatloaf and Wet, 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 Love Is All Around
And of
Me.
course, don't forget Brian Adams,
Yeah,
Anything I Do, which
uh,
felt like it was just stuck at the top of the charts forever.
yeah. And I do
Good
remember
times.
that first concert very well. From there, I went on to see him another 16 more times.
Oh, wow. You must be a bit of a fan.
I certainly were.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when he actually died a few years ago, I didn't realise how much it affected me that I actually sat
Oh,
sobbing.
oh, wow. God.
And I was sort of start laughing at myself, thinking, I don't actually know the guy, but he obviously played a
Yeah.
significant part in my life from finding his music when I probably might have been 11, 12, then getting really into him. You see, Meatloaf always told a story with his songs, and that's what I love. There was always a lot of meaning behind it, and you watch some of his videos and like little mini movies.
I didn't realize they were directed by Michael Bay, those ones from the early 90s. So they're like,
Right,
yeah, they're really cinematic. Jim Steinman songs, they're always so operatic. They're all on this kind of epic scale. And yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Simon and Meatloaf were an absolute dream team.
Yeah, it's really powerful stuff. Coming back to your life a bit, could you outline for us your particular path to diagnosis for Pompe? I gather from speaking with you before that it was quite a long and complex journey, if that's right.
Yeah, yeah. I think again back as early as 90s that a lot of these people have come through long different journeys getting to diagnosis. So I started off again when PE teacher had spoke to me and my parents, and off I went to GP to discuss what we'd been, my struggles. We explained these symptoms. I got sent off. I think I had some X-rays on my back and my hips, or a bit of something wrong with the bottom of the spine, which are curvature, which I think also maybe a lot of Pompe people have.
Is that scoliosis or something else?
No,
Or
it wasn't. No, it was just where the spine and the hips met up, is that they were just weren't really aligned, but they weren't
Hmm.
sort of nothing. As later on as we found out, was that weren't actually causing anything, but that's what we kept sort of investigating, or how we
Right.
started off thinking. So I would get hip and joint pains, and I thought this. So this is why I ended up getting referred to an orthopedic doctor. We went down here and we tried lots of different physios, orthopedics, pain management, and that went on for a lot of years, different appointments, waiting for appointments, to a point where they'd said, well, we don't actually think this is anything orthopedic, but never actually thought of anything else or referred me on to anybody else. They just discharged and said, just go off and do these physio things and carry on trying to do this. And that took a few years.
Was that a bit demoralizing or something, just to be pushed out of the system and told
Well,
there's nothing we can do for you?
I think at this stage, I don't think I'd been phased by anything, with people making these comments. I knew I was struggling a little bit more. I spent all that time going around different medical things, and then they went, well, we can't actually see anything wrong. But I'm thinking, well, it's been a few years now. I'm not feeling any better, and things are still the same as what they were, if not maybe getting a little bit worse. I think that's then when I did feel a bit deflated about it all, is that to me it felt like they were saying it might perhaps all be in my head or nothing really there. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not picking this up.
No.
Spent all that time at Barnsley Hospital, and then I went back to the GP a lot of years later after Barnsley said, well, just off you go and manage with physio. And went back and asked to get a referral to Sheffield Hospital to see if their mind, see if maybe I'd just been missed something, or, get that second opinion. But again, that that was just basically the same journey as what I'd had at the Barnsley Hospital.
So you're being passed between these different hospitals, but none of them are getting to the bottom of this or giving
Yeah,
you any more information, really.
and yeah, just basically did exactly the same. And that
And,
went on quite a long while again.
and how old were you when this was happening?
What was I say? So this must have been 13. People started to notice, but that referrals were made. And this went on probably a few years at Barnsley and then a few years after that.
So by this point, were you coming into your late teens?
Probably, maybe, yeah. And then it's times have all come a bit of a blur now.
So what turned the tide eventually for this?
Well, eventually, I mean, this were quite a lot of years later. I was struggling. I was doing a apprenticeship in diesel fitter, sort of working on mechanics on lorries. which I were interested in. You know, I wanted to become a long distance lorry driver and get that license while you were 21. So route into doing that was to go and do mechanics on lorries. And I got maybe 12 months into that and realised how much quite a heavy job it was. And
I was going to say quite physical, I would imagine.
very physical. I mean, I was trying my hardest, but then I think I were also then disguising a lot and trying to get away and push these heavy duty tasks that I've been asked to do. And that didn't really pan out and ended up going down different job routes. I did different stuff in supermarkets. I was doing like butchery and bakery and stuff like this. I didn't really have qualifications from school because, again, later on I was diagnosed with dyslexia. So,
right.
Again, I was disengaging at school from that, becoming the joker because I was struggling, and I didn't find that out till later on in life when I went back into education. So I went into bar work when I was 18, going from shift to shift.
Another quite physical job, bar work.
Well, yeah, but I loved it and managed it. And it was sort of then there that I'd met Jason when I was 19.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason used to work in a hotel. He was duty manager and he used to run events. And that's when I met Jason's boss. And she seen me and we were talking about things. And she says, well, have you ever seen a neurologist? Because she got kids that had some neurological problems. I can't really remember what theirs were. And she says, to me, it seems neurological. So I went to GP and said, look, oh, we've done all this all these years. I've had these referrals. I've been struggling with different jobs. I'm tired of physically. I'm struggling to bend and do this up and down. I'm managing it. And I've been advised that maybe it'd be good to go and see a neurologist. I might have got something neurological. And which the GP said, well, that'll be a waste of your time and my time for making that referral. So she wouldn't do it.
Did she give any reason?
She just said that she thought there was nothing neurological wrong with me, so it'd be a waste of a referral, and it'd be a waste of my time having to go through that. And which you'll sort of go, all right, well, you're a medical expert, I believe you, sort of thing.
That's quite shocking, actually, isn't it?
Absolute.
Yeah.
You know, I did end up going back to see this GP. I did come away from it a bit deflated, and I think I'd gone and spent the weekend at my nan's, told my nan about it, and she went, look, I've got some money. Let's go and get you a private appointment to see a neurologist. And within 30 minutes of that appointment, they'd said that they thought I'd got some sort of muscular dystrophy.
Right.
Need to have some more investigations. Would I like to keep stopping with him in private? It could refer me on to see a neurologist on the NHS. So I thought, well, that sounds great. Yeah, please make me a referral. I can't afford it. I don't want to keep asking Nanan for money. So he said he'd make me a referral to a senior neurologist, which is what I wanted, obviously, from the GP that didn't do it. You know, that did change a lot of things because I was struggling. I was living in a first floor flat and I got 16 steps to get up and down, which was starting to become difficult, carrying bags of shopping and stuff like that. And so having that diagnosis and getting that letter, I think, helped get some disability benefits to help me financially because I was struggling financially. And then it also helped then get moved out of my flat into a bungalow. That diagnosis changed a lot at that period in my life.
I mean, it really underlines how finding the right people within the system is so important and how opportunities otherwise can get lost and wasted.
So from that diagnosis and then going back to NHS, the neurologist that I was under, I built a good relationship with him. He was an absolute great, passionate neurologist. He never sort of stopped sending me for this and trying to, you know, see me. And that's when he sent me to go and have some tests in different hospitals in Newcastle for a few days. Ended up having a muscle biopsy. And from that biopsy, that's when I got the diagnosis of Pompe Disease.
Mm-hmm.
He said that he'd done a bit of research, he'd not known much about it, but he's tried his best to explain it to me in layman terms. Said he knew of a great centre in Cambridge and referred me. And this was 2006.
So very shortly before the approval of the first enzyme replacement therapy.
This was I've gone down and met the team, the lysosomal disorders unit in Cambridge, who were absolutely amazing,
Yeah.
explained everything, tried to reassure this and talked about it and did everything and said about the treatment. And I think we 3-4 weeks I were on treatment.
Wow. So yeah, after a very long, drawn out and bumpy road, that's a good resolution at that point of diagnosis to get onto treatment. But we'll talk about that a bit more in a second, if that's all right. Maybe we can move on to your next music pick now. It's another Meatloaf song. This time it's the epically titled Objects in the Rearview Mirror May Appear Closer Than They Are from 1993's Bat Out of Hell 2 that we were talking about a bit earlier. So why this one from the album?
So this again is from the 90s when I went to my first concert with my brother. We had as ups and downs as spats, but we were close. But one thing that always bonded us again was Meatloaf, and this were our song.
Right.
Because it is about brothers.
It's quite a dark song, isn't it? It's about this man haunted by these tragedies. It's quite heavy stuff in a way.
Yeah, well, yeah, as we go through songs, I'll see that my brother again comes into it. He got mental health and struggled many years. So I always remember having some good times, and if we'd had a few beverages, it'd be one that we'd put on and we'd belt it out together and have a good sing song. And it always brings back very fond memories of having good times with this. I do think he perhaps maybe have got Pompe himself, but he never ended up going to get tested.
Oh, really?
Going back, I remember that my brother Christopher always walk on insides of his feet, and he would have to have insteps in his shoes and stuff. And I know that went on for quite a lot of years. And I know he used to get fatigued quite a bit. So, I always kept saying to him, you need to get yourself tested. Let's get you tested, see if you've got it. But he never ended up getting tested and is now dead.
I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to laugh.
No.
A bit up.
I kind of gathered from the way you were talking about it before that he was maybe no longer
Yeah.
around.
Again, he never got tested and he struggled a lot with his mental health.
Yeah.
He lost him back in 2013. So, I've got fond memories and we had some good fun. And again, Meatloaf is
some of the glue that binds you together. That's really nice. So maybe we can move on a bit. Could I ask you to outline your daily life with Pompe these days? How are you affected physically? And to what extent has that changed since the time of your diagnosis?
Yeah, so physically, I've slowed down a hell of a lot. I'm sort of managed round the house, walking about, clambering with furniture, and I should probably maybe have a stick in house, but I never really do. So I went from being quite fiercely independent outside, and I never wanted to have a walking stick per se. Not for vain reasons, I think. I were at one point falling a bit more. When I were on the floor, I could get up on myself, and then I was having to get myself into a position and push myself up on my legs and then try and push myself into standing. Other times, they were having to use things to get up, so I weren't doing it. So I was always scared of using a walking stick and falling and jarring my arm off or something like that. So
yeah,
I was quite reluctant with that for quite a long time, but then I succumbed. I used to still be quite very independent, going out on my own, doing stuff, driving, getting out, using walking stick. But that's slowly gone to where I was struggling more. I needed help to get in and out of the car. Me driving, I don't really do that now anymore. I was quite a lot of years sort of still fiercely independent and using a walking stick, walking about. But see where I live, it's built on 7 hills. So there's
right.
wherever you go, you've got some bloody hill to walk up.
Going up or down.
Yeah.
Do you find it worse going? I mean, I find going up. I mean, obviously, I can't when it's really steep. That's obviously I can't do that. But I find going up a lot better. It's going down I can't do. The instability, basically. If I'm going up, there's kind of like a resistance that actually is a little bit stabilizing. Yeah,
I did find it probably more easier, more stable to probably walk up inclined hills, and that was always the same with stairs. I always felt more comfortable and confident going up the stairs than I did.
Me too.
Yeah, I have still got some mobility and I do manage around the house and I try and do as much as I can. And generally now I don't leave the house without using a wheelchair anymore because it's more of the worry of if I do fall, I can't get up myself anymore and I have to get up in a certain way. The few times when I was out with my mum were only 4'7", 4'8", and I once fell and she couldn't help me get up and So that becomes a bit of a worry for myself. So for safety reasons, I stopped. But at home, I manage. I've got the equipment around to sort of help so that I can, all right, on my own. I can get up from sitting because that were always my issue is that sitting to standing.
Yeah.
Wherever I go somewhere, whether it's go to cinemas or pubs or restaurants or wherever I go, it'd always be straight in and sort of scoping out what will be easiest for me to be able to sort of get down and be able to get back up again.
Same for me. Yeah. A lot of spaces just aren't designed for that. If it's somewhere with a table, then I can use the table to push myself up. A lot of seats or sofas, they're so low down, and those are the worst for me because it's like there's just nothing to help.
A lot of my friends, they got a bit of a dab hand at it as well. As soon as we get to places, it'll be straight up, where's easiest for you, Wayne? Where do you want to sit, Wayne? Sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there were times in my life where I felt embarrassed, where I perhaps wouldn't want to go somewhere because I've been worrying about getting there, getting up, getting down, what if I need to, And it becomes a bit of a mind game of mind over matter sort of thing because you don't want to stop it from doing stuff, but then you've got to be able to get up and down.
You've got to be practical and you've got to be safe. It's such a tricky balance, I think, between not giving up doing things because it's good to do things, but also you have to be, realistic and careful just about what is and isn't possible. And
exactly, yeah. So I do manage around the house all right with things.
Yeah.
I've got a razor chair that I'm sat in at the minute. It's that raises me to stand in so I can sit comfortably now in my own living room because before I used to have a two-seater settee and it were reclining, it were a bit comfortable. But getting up from it were a bit of a process. Just throw myself forward, turn myself round, push myself back up, Yeah, toilet, same. I've got a razor around the toilet so I can help myself on and off toilet. Because that's the big issue for me now when we do go places.
What's it like for accessible facilities where you are?
It has got better. It was never great. I mean, you can go to some places, there's certain places that have got better facilities than others. And you'll know yourself that no disabled toilet is ever perfect.
No.
Some are either too small if you do win a chair that you can't manoeuvre to get round, sort of do it. So you've sort of got to get out and try and walk in and be stable. Sliding doors I do find a lot better.
Yeah.
Which should be on all disabled toilets, if you ask me. Then they're also sometimes not that great. They don't have the full bars that pull down at the side of the toilet.
Yeah.
Just like little bars on the wall that are either too high or too low. So
well, as you said, it's like nothing's ever perfect in that sense, really, is it?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's difficult, sometimes they have sinks that are too low. I mean, if you are stood up and in a wheelchair, there's no easy solution.
Guess you can't please everyone, can you? We should probably move on. Time for another music pick. This time it's the US metal band Poison's Every Rose Has Its Thorn from 1988. And I've got to say, I think it's been ages since I've heard this song. I guess we were both pretty young when this was released, but it must have become a bit of a staple on the radio and in nightlife because it certainly took me right back to kind of, I don't know if it's late teenage years or whatever. I really remember this song.
I find that it always does come back. This always reminds me when I were actually in a good place. When I got the diagnosis, I'd started treatment. We'd moved house, moved into a bungalow. I was starting education, so I was starting then to come out of this sort of bit of mental health worry where I was down and fed up and things were never going to get better. I can't actually remember. Oh, yes, I do. It was from, I was watching a box set, The OC, which I fell in love with and I've watched quite a few times now, and it comes on at one moment since in an episode.
Right.
And something come on and it flashed back that I remember it from my childhood. And it brought back memories, and then I started playing it a lot, and it were constantly on YouTube, and then I'd heard a dance version of it. And so, I mean, music genre is actually quite, I know my list does sound quite dramatic and with music, but, I love my 50s, 60s swing. I've got an eclectic taste, but I suppose if I were to probably go back, it would be rock music that would be my go-to. And again, this song I was in a good place at that time. It brought back some good memories, and it got played to death. And my friend Elliot's saying is that, he's here again, putting that on.
But, if it does the job, it makes you feel good, why not? It's
Absolutely. It was a real good feel good.
That's the power of music,
Now every time it comes on, everybody sings it now because everybody
Yeah,
knows it and everyone loves it because I've made them love it.
it's the ultimate anthem. And maybe this ties in a little bit because you were talking about it being around the time you started treatment. I was going to ask you what your experience generally of treatment so far for Pompe has been. Also, maybe your experience with home care as well, if that's relevant.
Yeah, well, starting treatment in 2006, I did 2 years commuting to my hospital in Cambridge and back. I mean, it was a bit of a trek, but I enjoyed going down and I enjoyed meeting the team and I got to know my team quite well. And I would class them sort of as friends now. We've known each other for years and I met a couple of patients down there. Anyway, so I did 2 years doing that and then in Sheffield and I went there every 2 weeks. I did that for 2 years, which again I enjoyed. And then I got to meet people with different disabilities and different diseases and different illnesses that were having different treatments. And that's then what spurred me on to go back into education because, again, I'd met and spoke to so many people that had been lost in systems. I remember being down where they were and they were a bit fed up and they just got lost. They not got my disease, but they got other diseases and, the struggles that they were having. And I'd sort of overcome that. So, you know what? This is what I want to do. I want to go into social work and I want to help try and work with people with disabilities and give them that voice and support.
I was going to ask you, actually, is that your work then?
It was. I did my degree in social work and passed it and started working as a social worker. But then life stuff sort of happened. One with myself, I started to get a bit worse. My mum got a terminal diagnosis of cancer, so I come out of work and started being with mum full time. So now I just do voluntary stuff. I do find it a bit more rewarding than I never wanted to work in frontline social work, but also the voluntary side of it is that if I'm not feeling great myself, that you can just put your own time to it as and when. But yeah, that was me thinking back when I was having the treatment in Sheffield, and that's what I wanted to do. So to make that easier, then transition from the hospital to home care. Started having home care so I could have my infusion days at home studying. Because I was always a bit wary of home care, that you just have that like one-on-one with a nurse coming into your home and doing that infusion for quite a long time.
Yeah.
If that nurse doesn't fit, if we don't gel, if they're not going to feel comfortable in my home, or I always had them reservations about it. Anyway, it actually turned out absolutely fine. Had a few nurses of it years now, having home care. There were a couple that come in that weren't really bothered or engaged or really want to. But the ones that are passionate about it, the nurse now that I generally see, I've known for 17 years.
Oh, wow.
Got a great relationship. I've followed them around different drug companies. The home care company we started back off years ago, they were small, independent, and it was great. But then they sort of expand, and then bigger businesses buy them, and then it becomes more of a business.
It's a corporate kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's what did get on my nerves a bit because they weren't thinking about us. They were thinking about the profits and they weren't thinking about the nurses. The nurses were overrun. The nurses were fed up. They were tired. Then they started this new system where they were doing a scheduling system where you could end up with different nurses sort of all times, which I don't agree with. When you're having long infusions, you might having to then try and build new relationships with people and get to know them all again. And I didn't like the idea of that.
And just for context, you're still fully monitored, are you, for your infusions? It's a nurse visit for the whole time?
Yeah. Well, I went off. At this stage, like the same with home infusions, I got to a point where I were getting a bit fed up, and I know nurses were fed up on the company I was with. And then I got opportunity to go on a drug trial, so I went on that. So I went back to hospital for 5 years, which actually probably came at the right time, getting a bit fed up with the home care. So yeah, I did the trial for 5 years, and now I'm back on home care with a different company, and yeah, I'm happy with it. They're great.
It's working out.
It's all working good, yeah.
We should move on to your next music selection. I think it's from UK shores this time. It's another classic power ballad. It's Thunder's Love Walked In from their debut album Backstreet Symphony, released in 1991. I don't think I knew this one, but yeah, could you tell me a little bit about your choice?
Yeah, well, I weren't really a massive Thunder fan myself. It is rock that I do like listening to. It is a little bit more heavier than Meatloaf is, but this song, my mum was like my soul we were absolutely thick as thieves, really close relationship all our lives. And, she'd had a couple of marriages that didn't really work out, and she'd met a soulmate and they were going to be for life. And they were together for 20 odd years. And then she got diagnosed, unfortunately, with terminal cancer, and they weren't going to get married. But then they decided to get married. They were both avid music fans. They loved to go out to the gigs, and they'd sit at home and on certain nights and listen to certain radio stations.
Okay, right, yeah.
She wanted to get married. We'd lost my brother not long after she'd been diagnosed, and she sold a story to a magazine and donated it all to cancer charity, which were lovely.
Oh, wow.
Big double spreading magazine about.
Oh, wow.
She wanted to, her dying wish was to marry him, and talked about my brother and things like that, which were lovely, and she looked great. So yeah, this was song I walked her down aisle to for her to go and get married. I was like so petrified of walking her down aisle.
Right. Do
I walk down with my stick? Do I not walk down with my stick?
Right,
What if I fall
yeah.
while I'm trying to walk down? This were a big thing.
Your mum's big moment, yeah.
Mum's big moment, yeah. And as it did turn out, sort of thing, what we wanted to do, like, the song were going to be played, we were outside the doors, and the guests were in, and her boyfriend stood at the bottom of the aisle, and we were to walk in at a certain chorus it comes in.
Okay, yeah. When love walks in.
Love walks into the door. And that one, we kept doing it, and we kept missing cue to do it, and I'd set off, nearly fall, and set off and nearly fall.
Yeah.
But yeah. No,
but it was okay in the end. Please tell me it was okay in the end.
All went fine. All went hunky-dory. One of the best weddings I've been to. It was such a lovely day. She married him, and she's still got quite a few years after that.
Good on her.
That song's got a big, big, big place in my heart.
That's such a great story, Wayne. Thanks for sharing that. Moving on, I was going to ask you about any adaptations you've made in relation to daily life, but I guess we've kind of covered that a bit. Is there anything else that you want to add there?
I knew when I was doing my social work training and stuff like that, obviously the importance of having these things in and getting these referrals. And I had a great occupational therapist that come round here recently. I remember having one some years ago. I mean, because I had to fight for a wet room put into this council property that I'm in. That were a bit actually a bit. I didn't sort of meet the criteria to have it done. That was that stage in my life, and try this bath lift and blah 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 blah. And you've got to look at long term down the line when you're sort of living with a progressive disease. Some people don't want to, like to manage, but you've got to think, and sometimes these referrals can take 6 to 8 months or whatever.
Yeah.
I had a great occupational therapist, and we went through everything and adaptations. So I've got the wet room in, I've got a lift so I can get in and out of the house a lot easier on the wheelchair, toilet raiser, grab rails around bed. Yeah, everything's adapted to how it can suit. This might change in time to come. We might need other things. There were discussions of shall we get you on housing list to get you moved, this, that, and the other. But I went through process, and that wasn't a great process because I was getting pushed about a bit, saying, well, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And so I've just stopped it, and we're managing at the moment, and we're just looking at the adaptations later on, or what are the different stuff.
Yeah, take it as it comes. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so another music pick. This is a bit more of a down-tempo ballad, I guess, by Canadian singer-songwriter Sarah McLachlan, called Angel. This is a real heart-wrencher, my word.
This is my brother's funeral song.
Oh, okay, right.
It's a happy song now, when I do play it. The song had a lot of meaning because the lyrics and the words is what's described that Christopher with his mental health. The words, lyrics resonate to him and his circumstances and situation. I didn't want to let my parents, they'd lost the son who'd struggled a lot of time. I didn't want them to have to do anything. So it was me that took the role and responsibility of having to sort his house and finances, his funeral and everything. I didn't want them to do it. So it was my choice to pick some songs for his funeral, which I wanted to make something, We'd listen to a few songs, a few glasses of wine, and this song come listening to lyrics, and hit and fit for the right time to do it. And as sad as it were, and as sad as the funeral were, that song I can now play, and it's a happy, sad song, if that makes sense.
You still come back to it a bit then to listen to?
Yeah.
All right, so moving on a little bit, along with Malcolm, who I interviewed recently, and myself, you're currently a trustee of the Pompe Support Network, and I gather you're also on the advisory board for the International Pompe Association, or IPA. Yeah. And I know you're active in participating in Pompe group threads and meetups and so on as well. Could you discuss a bit your experience with the Pompe community in the UK and beyond, and if this has helped with your perspective on living with the condition?
Yeah, it does now. When I first got diagnosed and I was first going through the beginning part of my journey, I pushed myself away from everything. As happy as I were to get that diagnosis, I think I didn't want to get too involved with anything related to Pompe. I wanted to just push it to one side at that stage and get on with my life. So I never actually really engaged with anything. I had been told there was stuff out there. I mean, at that stage, I think there were AGSD.
Conferences and stuff.
I think I'd once looked into it, and I think there were a conference thing that you could go down to understand it. But when I looked at it, I sort of thought, well, it's quite a full weekend. It looked quite intense. So I pushed myself away for quite a long while. It was only when I was just about to start the trial in 2019. And I had seen there were a lady that used to work for AGSD, Jane Lathwaite, they called her. She was sort of a bit like a social worker for Pompe charity sort of thing. And, I think it was her that she'd seen it and she'd sent me an email that they were advertising from IPA. They wanted some Pompe patients to join this advisory board. I don't know what happened or what clicked. I just sort of went, I want to do this.
Right.
So I went from doing nothing to then travelling from UK all the way across to America to be thrown into one of the biggest world conferences that they have for 3 days. And then 3 days after that, doing the community advisory board.
That's quite full on.
Yeah. I'm all or nothing, I think.
Just time for one last music selection and one final ballad. This time, Ed Sheeran and his Supermarket Flowers from his 2017 album Divide. Do you want to tell me a little bit about your choice here?
Doom and gloom again. Yeah, it weren't actually my mum's funeral song, but it were. I mean, I love Ed Sheeran anyway. Again, he does some good upbeat music, and a lot of his music I can relate back to in sort of stages of my life. I mean, Castle on the Hill took me back to my teenage years and things like that. Maybe I could have perhaps had one of them as my choice because it's one of the good songs. But then this one come out, I don't know if you think he released it when my mum passed. And it had come on, and I just remember sat once and listening to words, and instantly, again, it sort of brought me down into tears because it just reminded me of my mum, and but time does get a bit easier sort of thing. And this one, it's gone again from sort of when I heard it originally, it was very raw, but now it's turned around and it has become one of the happy songs that when it does come on, it brings back the memories that I have, and which music brings back memories for all different times.
Of course, yeah. It seems like a lot of these are big milestone pieces of music in your life, telling a bit of a story about your life. It's been really great to hear you talk about these pieces. So finally, Wayne, is there anything else I've missed? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I think I've probably taught you to sleep, haven't I?
All good. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks so much again for joining me. And please keep an eye and an ear out, everyone, for the next episodes of Pompe Island Discs. I'm Luke Fraser. Thanks for listening.